Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Play Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Nye. Right now in Isle Deckney, it is 9:23 a.m. on Tuesday, May 12th, 2020. No news as usual. It's only Tuesday, so be sure to pace yourselves. Don't overdo it. And Isabelle signing off. I'm going to warn you ahead of time. Today I'm going to rant. It is time for me to rant. It's time for me to talk about something I've been avoiding talking about for the past couple of days, a week, 2 weeks. Unfortunately, because I live mostly as a hermit lifestyle, I work from home, live at home, I tend to lose track of time a little bit, and the things that I would usually do to help me, and this has been a thing for a while, this is not a new thing, but I tend to lose track of time a little bit. And with the lack of activities because of stay-at-home orders, the things that I would usually use to kind of track time passing just don't exist right now. Hi, old buddy, old pal. Would you believe I found some furniture I don't use anymore just lying around? Well, I gave you guys plenty. How do you lose a whole piece of furniture? Life, I'm telling you, just be careful with it. I don't know where it's been. Good luck, Renee. But I'm going to rant. I've been holding back this rant for for a bit. For a very good reason. I kind of don't want to alienate viewers. That's kind of an important thing to me, to not really piss you guys off, really. As weird of a statement as that is. Okay, what did she give us? She gave us a diner neon sign. Cool. But I don't want to alienate you guys. I don't want to... I want to avoid saying something that will have you guys go, well, Nye doesn't believe in my political views or my sociological views or my economical views. Nye does not believe the same thing I do, therefore I don't want to watch him anymore. You know, I want... Okay. That's interesting. But... you know, as charged as a statement of safe place tends to be, a lot of people don't like that type of statement. But I do want, you know, my channel to be a place where everybody can at least feel accepted and welcomed. It doesn't mean I'm going to agree with what you have to say. It doesn't mean I agree with you on things. But it does mean that in my channel, at this place in time, you are allowed to believe it. I'm going to argue with you. I'm going to try to convince you otherwise if I disagree with you, but you're allowed to have whatever beliefs that you have. I hold the same true for myself, though. I'm allowed to have whatever beliefs I have. You're allowed to disagree with me, and you're allowed to convince me otherwise. But I think that's the only way we can have something. And I have a couple of beliefs that I'm going to go ranting about for the next 45 minutes. I apologize ahead of time if you're not into that. This is a episode you can feel free to skip. But this is also an episode where... like always, you know, this hasn't changed, y'all. Like always, when I say this stuff, you know, part of me, I want to open up that conversation. So if I say something in the next, you know, 45 minutes that you have feelings about, that you know, you're sitting here going, you know what, I disagree, or I do agree, or I want to, you know, I know more than you do, and believe me, you probably do. I am, unfortunately, less educated than I would like to be, and that does lend me to having a fair amount of... you know, of things that I just do not know. So, and I absolutely welcome, absolutely, people who know better than I do, reaching out and saying, no, that's not how this works. Let me actually talk to you about it. Believe me, I actually do want to hear that. So feel free to reach out. I'm trying to see if we have like an outdoor bench or something that I can use. But I'm going to rant a little about COVID. Specifically, the concept of stay-at-home orders. It's something that I actually have fairly strong feelings about, and I'd like to say that I know at least a little bit about this stuff. Not a ton, naturally. I am neither a... okay, so this is what we got. We got the neon sign. I know exactly where I'm going to put that. But I am neither a... I'm not a medical professional. I am not a scientist. These are important things to note. I am not a politician. I am none of those three things. So this doesn't make me an expert, which is kind of an important statement. However, I live with two medical professionals, both of whom have given me their educated opinions. I do read what the scientists say, and I do follow what the politicians say. So, in that, I'd like to say I'm at least as educated as anybody else who's spouting off about all of this. And possibly a little bit more so because I actually bothered to read before I spouted off. But again, this is going to be stuff that some people are not going to like hearing. So therefore, your mileage may vary. Be aware. I'm probably just going to make a log bench. As I'm kind of looking through this stuff. I'm going to order a mountain bike for a neighborhood-friendly ape. Okay. So, COVID has changed all of our lives. All of ours. Everybody's been affected by this in some small way. Unfortunately, the family of over 70,000 people in the United States, so 70,000 families, give or take, because I know some families have been adversely affected more than once by COVID. But 70,000 families have been affected by COVID. That's a lot of people. It's an awful lot of people. If you look at this, 70,000 people, 70,000 families is a lot more than you know as a single person. I mean, it really is. Like, that's not a small statement. Most of us only know a couple of hundred people at most. Legitimately. When I say no, I mean more than a past... God... Ah! Never mind. But that's no in more than a passing familiarity. You don't know a ton of people well. You know a small amount of people well. So, and the problem is that as humans, I find that we lose track of the meaning of numbers as numbers get larger and larger. So the problem is 70,000. 70,000 is a large number. It's a very large number. 70,000 isn't a number that most of us can empathize with. It's not a number that most of us can actually connect with. That's an important thing, because 70-ish thousand people in the United States alone, which, keep in mind, of my audience, of the people watching this video, however many of you will eventually watch, not all of you are from the United States. I'm not talking about the numbers of those who are around the world. I'm talking just the United States. Last I checked, 50% of my audience, maybe a little bit less than that, maybe 40% of my audience, but a decent size of my audience does not come from the United States. Thinking on how many people I have in my audience who I know for a fact come from outside of this country, a lot more people are affected. But I'm sorry for you folks that are over the seas or over the borders. That number is just the United States. I don't have your numbers off the top of my head. But also a little bit of this rant is for the United States only, because some of the rest of you aren't impacted by what I'm about to say, is I guess how I'm going to put that. But 70,000 people, we just can't connect on the number 70,000. 70,000 is a huge number. And that might not be the limit to that number. It might be more people have died from COVID, as we learned that, nursing homes in Florida have not necessarily been actually reporting their numbers correctly. We learned that COVID actually did not necessarily start in, December or January the way we thought it did. It was more likely last year. And because of that knowledge, that starts to mean that, well, there were probably deaths last year that would have been COVID, not whatever they were actually attributed to. So 70,000 is probably a low number. But 70,000 people have died. That's a lot of people, and the problem is that most people cannot understand that number. And I'm not calling anybody stupid or uneducated, ignorant, or anything of that nature. It is just, we can't. 70,000 apples is not something you can really picture in your head. If I told you that it's 10,000 apples to a crate, and I said 70,000, you might be able to picture 70,000, or sorry, if I send 1,000 apples to a crate, you might be able to picture 70 crates. But you're probably not picturing 70,000 apples. And if you can't picture 70,000 apples, if you can't, you probably can't picture $70,000. Like, it's not limited to some of these things. It's a number that is reasonably large. And so the problem is that when we talk about 70,000 people dead, I'm gonna go. Let me go. I keep on repeating this number, 70,000. Let me just do it. Sorry. As of today, 81,000. Sorry, I thought I was lowballing it. I thought I was highballing. I'm lowballing it. As of right now, 81,000 people dead. It's a large number, and unfortunately, it is a number that people cannot... They just can't picture it. We can't picture $70,000 in a pile. We can't picture 70,000 apples. We cannot picture the concept of 70,000. It is just large number. And this is important because the number 81,000 is the number I need to use. The number 81,000 is the number of people who have died. We can't picture 81,000 apples. How are we picturing 81,000 people? How are we picturing 81,000 lives? These are unique and interesting people who no longer exist. They are gone. They will never come back. They cannot be replaced. This is the families of 81,000 people who are affected. These are the families of 81,000 people whose life will never be the same again. This 81,000 people are parents, children, brothers, sisters, cousins. I don't want to make it too emotionally charged because that's not the point here. The point is that emotion can't be used here because we just can't picture it. We cannot get emotionally invested in it because we can't picture it. And that's the problem. 81,000. So I bring up this number. The reason I'm hammering this point home is that there's been a lot of talk recently. And unfortunately, talk has turned to action, and that's why I'm angry. But there's been a lot of talk recently about how we need to reopen the economy. How, we need to get money rolling again. How we cannot be afraid of the death hole. Sacrifices will be made. People may have to die in order to make money, in order to make the economy move again. Now, what I'm also not going to ignore, because there will be people who will be very upset that I haven't even talked about this yet, so I'm going to talk about it now. I'm not going to ignore the, let's see, COVID unemployment. So the unemployment numbers, I believe we're talking about, 22 million unemployed. That's only as of April 16th. It is now May 12th. So that's a month out of date. The numbers are much higher. Yes, we have 22 million people unemployed, which is also a large number. These are also primary breadwinners. These are people who are unable to feed themselves, their families. These are people who are having trouble making ends meet. Believe me, I also understand that number. I'm not saying I can picture it, because I also cannot picture 81,000, so I can't picture 22 million either. To me, that's just 22 of the number million, not 22 million. But I'm not going to, say that we shouldn't be taking action to take care of these people. But there's a problem going on right now. It's a fairly large problem. This is not something that's small or something that's tiny. There's a problem, and that's that people are putting money and their own personal interests over their neighbors, their communities. They're saying that I'm willing to take the chance that you will die in order to continue my life. There was this kind of hits close to home because this was from Colorado, but in Colorado, in Castle Rock, which is a town I know Castle Rock. I've gone through it many, many times. I've been there. I've shopped there. I have eaten in cafes there. I know Castle Rock. It was like 30 to 40 miles north of the town I grew up in. In Castle Rock, Colorado, which is a place where the shutdown orders have not officially been lifted yet. They're still kind of in this intermediary state. Now, I'm going to admit, I have not followed Colorado's, opening orders very closely because it's Colorado, and I live in Louisiana now. but they were not allowed to open yet. They were not in a position... What's up, Rockolo? Super Seeker greeting? Cool. So your Super Seeker greeting is going to be sup. I'd give you up nod, but I don't want you just saying up nod to people. Sup? It's got a real good mouthfeel. Sounds good to me. It feels yummy. Thanks for coming up with that. I can't wait to use our secret greeting next time we meet up. Cool. Hey, what do you need? You didn't say sup. Dude. So the problem is, I know Colorado. I'm familiar with it. In Colorado, they have not lifted. They've kind of opened up, and they're saying, okay, we're gradually opening up. But there was a cafe in Colorado on Mother's Day that decided that they were just going to completely open up. They were going to ignore requirements for being safe, for being healthy. People packed the cafe for Mother's Day. Tons of people. Their masks were not being used. Gloves were not being used. Social distancing procedures were not being used. And it was a risk for tons and tons of people. They had lines out the door because look, people want to. They want this to be over. They want to leave. They want to get their lives back in order. And I completely understand that. This is not something I'm not cognizant of. I know people want normality to resume. They want things to happen that are normal again. Look, I get it. But a lot of these people completely ignored any attempt to keep themselves, their families, and their neighbors safe in the name of getting out and having a good time. And, you know, celebrating moms, which is important. We did a, you know, brunch for my mom. We did spend some time together. Apparently this book is really surprising to Melba. Okay, she's not gonna get off that, so we'll move on. But we celebrated my mom, but we celebrated inside. We celebrated at home because my mom is a nurse. She understands what's going on. She knows this is not a year to go out. And we understand that. These people didn't. And one of the arguments, which I couldn't believe, from one of the cafe owners was that they didn't respect the orders being given because the people giving them were not elected. No, that's your governor or your mayor. These people are elected. You did that. You might not have voted for them, but they were elected. This is their job. These are scientists that are educated. These are health officials who study the numbers, who study the effects of this pandemic, who look at the health effects and also look at the recommendations on what is the healthiest thing. These are people that know more than you do. And that's kind of the point. They know more than you. They are educated. They are the ones that have actually looked at stuff and potentially figured out what the best way to go is. And what angers me is that people are just ignoring this. They're completely not ignoring the fact that this happened. So this cafe was shut down. The health department in Colorado revoked this cafe's license to operate. They're no longer allowed to be open. Now, keep in mind, apparently they still are open. So something else is going to have to happen because now they're not respecting that license removal. But, so now they're going to have to see how enforcement's going to work. But, this cafe, they had their license removed. They were told, you are no longer allowed to be open. You're not allowed to sell anything at all because you chose to open like this. You chose to risk people. What I'm worried about, more than... So, first of all, what I'm worried about all the families that went to that cafe. We know that COVID sometimes presents asymptomatically. What that means for people who have heard that term that don't know what that actually means, asymptomatically means you may be sick, but you don't look sick. I want you to think about that for a second. You may be sick. You may have COVID, and you're not coughing. You're not sneezing. You don't have a runny nose. You're not having trouble breathing. Your toes aren't turning funny colors. You're not having any of the seizures. You're not having the symptoms. So you don't have any of those amazing things, those terrible things that show that you have COVID. But you know what you can do? You can spread it. Even if you do not show the symptoms. So even if you look healthy, to everyone around you. You could spread COVID. You could give COVID to other people around you. Just think about that for a second. Let that run through your mind. Also, hell yes. I will be back. But I want you to think about that for a second. You don't have COVID. Great. I am very happy for you. Thankfully, my family doesn't have it either. We have not been affected. My mom got sick a couple of weeks back, and as I said, she's a nurse. She got sick about 2 weeks back. It looked like the flu, and the problem is, if it looks like the flu, it could be COVID. She had to take a test for COVID to see if she had it. It came back negative, but the problem is the test at the time had false negatives, which means even though it says negative, even though it says you don't have it, you might still have it. You should get retested. We spent a weekend worried that something was going to happen to her, that she had it, and luckily she didn't. We got way away from it. We were not affected. No one in our family has COVID. None of my extended family has COVID. We got lucky. We could have lost someone in my family. There's a high chance. My mom is a nurse. She is seeing patients. 2 people where she works have gotten COVID. We're in New Orleans, where COVID is everywhere, where we have one of the highest numbers of people that have gotten COVID over the course of the past couple of months. Thankfully, I believe we're on the downturn, but we have had that down here. So there was a significant chance that she could have had it. My sister is a therapist for addicts. Addicts love to share things, especially where she works. This is not a guess. This is not a generalization. This is something that she told me about her own counseling center that she worked at. She's left there since then. But she had addicts that she was dealing with, who were sharing things. They were sharing needles, they were sharing cigarettes, they were sharing bottles of vodka, so they could easily pass it to each other. And the place that she worked with was not testing anybody, which meant that anybody that my sister could work with could have COVID and she'd never know, and she could contract it just like that. Another of my sisters works for the city. She works giving grants to the needy. And she works right out of the coroner's office. The coroner's office, for those of you who haven't made this connection immediately, is where dead people go. Dead people who may or may not have died from COVID. So there's a chance that she could have gotten it. So I have sisters and a parent who all could have easily gotten it because of their jobs. So we've all been very, very worried about this. But what I'm worried about with this place in Colorado that decided against all, not only recommendation, but against all statement of you must do. They decided they were much more intelligent than anybody else and that they should just open up anyways and let a bunch of people in. I am worried, I am concerned that someone there, unknown to themselves, had COVID. Because if they did, because of how contagious this disease is, there's a significant chance that they could have spread it to more than one person, to many people. Everyone that went there could be affected because people weren't using masks. They were right next to each other. They were doing literally everything that the CDC, among others, have said not to do. All because they decided that they were more important than anybody else, that they were more important than the government, they knew more than anybody else, that their personal feelings were better than everybody else's. And that pisses me off. As someone who goes out of their way in situations like this to look up recommendations, to look to see what the experts are saying, and then follow their advice, as someone who has kept home to make sure that I am not one of those people that's risking anything, as someone who goes out with a mask on every time I leave the house for more than walking my dog. Now, keep in mind, I should be doing it for walking my dog too, but there's not anybody around, so there was no chance of us actually meeting someone and being within 6 feet, much less, breathing their air. But as someone who's been using a mask every time I leave the house, I'm sitting here going, I'm making the attempts. Why are you not? I've been reading how they've been saying this is going to be a problem. I've been looking at the graphs where they show that our cases continue to just simply rise. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, part of me is absolutely angry, and the reason I am angry is that I am doing these things and someone else isn't. So I am not sacrificing, because sacrifice is absolutely not the word. This isn't a sacrifice for me not to go out to play Magic the Gathering. It's not a sacrifice that I'm not going to the dog park. That's not a big deal. These aren't things that, you know, we should be, you know, making a big deal about. But what I am angry about is that I am making the effort to make sure that I am not inadvertently spreading someone to my neighbors, to my family. I live in a neighborhood full of old people and families. I live right next to a school. There's a bunch of kids. I think 6th grade is probably the oldest they go. But there's a bunch of kids that live right next to me. I don't want to accidentally spread to them. There's a bunch of families. There are families that I pass on my dog walking where they are, you know, older. They are families with young kids and older parents. I don't want to spread to them. I don't want to, you know, have this kid get sick, and I don't want to take a parent from a kid because I did something stupid. Several of my neighbors are elderly, 70 or older. They are in those... Hey, CJ's here. Okay, cool. But they're elderly. They are people who are in these... Okay, we're going to leave that there. But these are people who are in the risk categories. I don't want to spread it to them. I don't want to have these people die because I decided to make a decision because I wanted to go do something. I don't want to be greedy and cause someone else pain. So I'm willing to say, you know what? I will stay home as opposed to doing that. So part of me is just simply angry that people have decided to put themselves over others. They have decided that, you know, they are more important. What I'm angry is that we have people who are educated and spend their lives doing this, and they're just being ignored. And I bet you they're angry, too. Like, I can hear the frustration when I watch some of these people talk on the TV. I can hear the frustration in their words when they are quoted by newspapers. That all of this is happening in the way that it is happening. So I just, like, I sit here, and I look at this, and keep in mind, you know, we look at okay, what's the Sports Challenge? 5 times, okay, 5 fish in a row. Okay, we can do that. You know, I look at New Orleans, so I look at the city where I live. We've been hit really hard by COVID. A lot of people have died, lots of infections. You know, a lot of people say it's because of Mardi Gras. It probably was. A lot of people say we shouldn't have done Mardi Gras. You know, we didn't know at the time is the thing. There was no recommendations to stay home at the time. But, you know, we've had a lot of stuff going on here, and we've been closed down for a while. Even though the city, or the state, is thinking about reopening, the city is thinking about staying closed even longer just to make sure. There are a lot of restaurants down here that are simply staying closed for a while. There's a lot of restaurants, like, New Orleans is full of, you know, small bars, jab clubs, restaurants, and these places are hit extraordinarily hard. They are, you know, they are places that probably won't ever open again. There are a number of them that will never open again because they just could not, you know, deal with being shut down this long. A lot of them are sitting there waiting to hear when we'll be able to open again. I was reading an article a couple hours ago about a local place called Andrea's. And Andrea's is about 3, maybe 5 blocks from my house. I pass it on the regular. I've never had a chance to eat there, but I really want to. It's a higher class restaurant. I believe it's Italian. But Andrea's is waiting to open. I think they've been doing the whole like curbside takeout thing. But Andrea's has been waiting to open. They repainted, they shampooed their carpets, they have changed the decor a little bit so it looks fresh and interesting. And mostly what the main chef wants, what Chef Andrea wants, is he just wants, or she just wants, I'm actually not 100% sure on that one. But the chef just wants the regulars to be able to come back. You know, yes, they want other people to come in, but they just want the regulars back. But some of these are restaurants that have been around for forever. They will never open again. Some of them my family has been eating at for a long time. There are restaurants that will never open again. But they're waiting, and they're going to wait longer because our mayor has decided, hey, we need to wait longer. But at the end of the day, this is their job. The people that make these decisions, the people who say, you know, we should stay closed. And I'm not acknowledging that a lot of people have said, no, we should reopen. I'm not ignoring that. I'm not ignoring that it is the governors who have made the statement that, no, we should reopen, we're ready for it. But I look at places like the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. The entire reason this place exists is to control disease. It's in the name. Their job is to make sure shit like this doesn't happen, and if it does happen, to mitigate as much as possible. That's why they exist. This is a government institution. These are, like, the most educated people in the land. This is their job. They're not economists. They are not, they don't have any personal stake in the business side of things. Their job is to know, is it safe or not? And they sit there and they tell us, you know what, if you want to open, these are the things that you should be looking at. And they give us a list, and one of the things on the list is that, you know, you have to have a downwards trend of infections. And what they mean by that, so, you know, they say that a lot. I was reading an article also today about what that means. So what is a downwards trend? So to put it into simpler terms, what they say is that COVID is an extremely infectious disease, extremely infectious. That's what makes it scarier than some of the other diseases we've had. Scarier than SARS, scarier than bird flu. You know, SARS was deadly, but it didn't spread very well. And bird flu spread extremely well, but wasn't as deadly. Which is why we didn't close for those ones. COVID is extremely deadly, and it's also extremely infectious. But they were talking about how what we want is that, on average, I think they said, the average person with COVID is going to spread it to 2.8 other people. Now, I know there's lots of jokes about the idea of how do I spread to you know, 80% of a person. But on average, what they're saying is that some people may spread to 2 people, some may spread to 4 people, some may spread to 3 people. The average is about 2.8. So what that means is that if I'm sick and I don't do these things that they recommend, I could infect up to 3 other people on average, if we're gonna round up. But I could infect 3 other people on average. And that's how you get those upwards facing graphs that we've been seeing, where the line just keeps on going up and up and up, and more infections are happening. More and more infections are happening in these cases because one person infects another person, who infects another person, infects another person. But that's 1 to 1 to 1. That's you infected one person. One person infects 3 other people. Now you have 4. Each of those 3 other people infects 3 other people. That's 9 plus 4, that's 13. Those additional 9 people each affect another 3 people each. So that's another 27. Now we're up to 40. And it just keeps on growing like that. The other 27 are each going to affect the other people. That's going to be another 81. Now we're at 121. I hope I'm doing my math correctly in my head. But the important point is that people keep on infecting. If you can get it down to a 1 infection per person, now one person infects a second person. The second person infects a third person. So we're still infecting additional people, but because of the way we've kind of reduced the infections there, it's at least not infecting as much. If we can get the infection rate down to less than 1, down to a 0.8 or a 0.7, now less than 1 person is being infected per person, which means the numbers are going to decline. The lower that we can push the number, the faster we can get rid of that nonsense. And once, you know, you have only 1 person left, well, they might not infect anybody else at all, or eventually they just won't infect someone. And that's the whole point of the social distancing and the stay-at-home orders, was to push those numbers down. So the idea here is that we want to get those numbers down enough so that maybe one person infects zero 0.5 people. So it takes, 2 people to infect one person. Well, all of a sudden that means our numbers are halving on a regular basis. It's 1/2 tomorrow, 150 today, 75 tomorrow, 37.5 the next day, and so on. So at a certain point, it's less and less people. So when they say don't open until you see a successive downward trend, they are saying don't open until you have shown that less than one person is being infected per person. And they said have a downward trend for 2 weeks straight. So that would drastically reduce the numbers in the United States. This is something that hasn't been done. Our numbers haven't gone down. We're seeing... Let me go. I had that graph open a second ago. Let's see. Looks like new cases have been going up and down consistently. We're on a downwards trend over the course of the past 5 days, but the 3 days before that, which I believe is when people were actually opening again, it went up again. So it's been continually going up and down. We're not getting that consistent downwards trend that we wanted. Let me, wish I could just see Louisiana's cases here, but we're continuing to see upwards, and that's total number of cases. It doesn't matter if the on the week cases have, if it's not, it's not the. I believe what they're saying is the new cases. What we care about have the new cases have gone down, not total cases. It's a little bit ridiculous. Oh, hey, I can look at just Louisiana. Let's see. So Louisiana, we seem to have bottomed out a little bit, but we're still seeing spikes around where I live in new cases. And if I look at total cases, looks like we're still going up a little bit. In my parish, a parish is like a county down here. In my parish, we have 6,388 cases. 371 deaths. I may know someone. There may be someone in here I'll never see again. But I find it absolutely ridiculous that, we have the graphs from other countries. I wish I had the graphs in front of me because I was watching them. The other day. Actually looking to see, there we go, looking to see if I can actually find some of these comparison graphs of the United States versus other countries. But they kept on saying, flatten the curve. We haven't in the United States. Other countries have, and the countries that have are the ones that have been doing those lockdowns, that have been doing tons of testing, that have been doing all of these things on a regular basis to ensure that people are healthy. And I understand the arguments that people are making. People are saying that we have the right to business. We have the right to move around. We have the right to assemble and things like that. And I understand the fear and the concern that, if the politicians can just so easily lock us in our houses over this, take locks over houses over anything. I understand that concern. And I understand that they're antsy. I understand, at the very least, at the least important thing, is that people are antsy. They want to leave their houses. They want to go and resume their lives. People haven't, there are people who, unlike me, I'm an introvert. I'm very happy, only seeing people every once in a while. But there are extroverts, people who are only happy when they get to be with other people. I understand that. I don't want you guys, those of you who thrive on parties and being with friends and going out to eat and being with other people, I don't want you guys to be unhappy. Absolutely not. I absolutely want you guys to be able to have all the happiness that you can. I understand that. And that is some of the reasons some of these people do not want to be locked in their homes. Some people are worried about making ends meet. They lost their jobs. And I cannot tell you how much my heart goes out to those people. There's not much more I can say, and there's not much more I can do. I know that that's a very small thing to say that, I feel for you. It's the same as changing, putting the flag on my Facebook photo. It doesn't really do anything for you. It's not helping you. Believe me, I understand. You know, I understand you don't want to be locked in your house. And I absolutely understand the people who are sitting there going, wow, they can just so easily do this. This could be infringing on my rights. Maybe they'll do it again for something less important. That's absolutely a valid concern. Well, let me phrase that. That's absolutely a concern I can see people having. It's not valid by any means. But it's absolutely a concern I can see people having. I understand people who are worried about that. I understand people who are worried they're going to lose their businesses. It's very easy for me to say these things as a person who didn't lose their job, who is still making a steady paycheck. Believe me, I understand. People are going to be, angry that someone like me who did not have to worry about making bills and paying rent is going to be the one saying stay the fucking home. That's why I said at the very outset of this video that some of the stuff I'm going to say could make people angry. There's people there who they're trying to feed their kids, feed their family, just feed themselves, who are worried about losing their house, losing their business. These people are going to be very angry at me for saying these things. And believe me, I understand, and I'm willing to take that ire. But at the same time, what I don't, what I think is, I think there's a lot of folks out there, folks that are more powerful than you and me, who see their pocketbooks being affected. And I'm not, and believe me when I say, I'm not saying a conspiracy theory, because I know that's what that sounds like. I'm not saying this is a conspiracy. I think there's legitimately people out there, the people who, own the bigger businesses, not necessarily the small business owners who, if they're shut down for 3 to 5 weeks, they could lose their business. I'm talking about the bigger folks, the Walmart folks, the Target folks, the ones who they can survive, but they want to see the numbers go up. They have a vested interest in getting the economy back in order. They lose for every day we're closed. They're the ones pushing for that. They are the ones who are putting money towards people. They're the ones saying, reopen now. The people who make tons of money are the ones saying, no, we should reopen now. And they should not be the ones to make that decision. That's where I sit, is that it should be the people who are not politically leaning, who are not invested one way or the other. People who their job is to just see that we are all healthy. Again, we can look at other countries, and there are other countries who did do the whole lockdown thing, and they are seeing the numbers go down. And when they reopen, they're not reopening everything. They're reopening small sections. They're reopening small things at a time. And they're seeing the numbers go down. And we're seeing warnings come in from the CDC. We're seeing warnings come in from people whose jobs it is to look at the numbers and to review where the infection's going. And they're saying, do not reopen. If you do, things are going to get worse. And it makes me wonder, at the end of the day, what if things get worse? Infections go up. Once upon a time, we were saying that, 60,000 would be the number of deaths. We're at 81,000 as of this morning, as of me looking up the numbers just a few minutes ago. The deaths are rising. The estimates are going up. More people are going to die. What's going to happen when we have to close again? You think it's bad now? What happens if we have to close again? Shut down again? People are going to be even more upset. People are going to riot even more if we have to reclose after opening because we made a bad mistake. I've seen statements from politicians who said, I would rather be accused of overreacting than deal with the punishments and the results of underreacting. At the end of the day, I think an economy is absolutely a terrible thing to lose. And, money it sucks not to have it. And it sucks for an economy to be shut down. But we can fix that. We can recover the economy. The United States has done it before in, the Great Depression, in recession. We have dealt with this stuff before. This is not new. It may be worse now, but I think the big difference is that this particular recession is something that we didn't control. It's something that happened because we shut down, which means we can fix it by opening up at the right time. It's not uncontrollable. It's not, oh god, the markets crashed for reasons we don't understand. No, we understand why the reasons happened. It's not the Great Recession where the housing bubble popped and we had to rebuild after that because, things change. It's not the dot-com bubble popping and we don't understand how to deal with it. No, we understand. The economy died because we closed the economy. That's it. The economy will recover when we reopen. And that's extremely simplified, and every economist is going to yell at me because I said that. But it's a fixable thing. What's not fixable is people dying. What's not fixing is lives ruined. I didn't even talk, and I'm not going to go too long on it because we're already at 46 minutes today, but I didn't even talk about people who their personal livelihoods, they're not dead, but they have all of these hospital bills. The healthcare in the United States is already a joke in the world in general. But then we talk about people who caught COVID and they have a $200,000 hospital bill. That's not an exaggeration, by the way. That is an actual hospital bill someone had because they caught this. Something they have nothing they can do about. That person is going to have to be paying off that bill for years and years and years. Their wages are going to get garnished. This is someone who is going to have to deal with that debt for God knows how long. People have lost their healthcare coverage because they lost their jobs. So if they catch COVID, they are on the hook for every dollar of that healthcare coverage. God damn it, I said I wasn't going to talk about this, and I'm not going to talk anymore about it. But the point is, lives are being ruined. And those aren't things we can easily get rid of. We can easily reopen the economy. But I want to see the politicians going to go, yeah, every hospital who took care of people, give them their healthcare coverage for free. To wipe the slate clean. If you had to go to the hospital, you owe no money. I want to see that. I don't think I'm going to, but God, I wish I could. I'm not going to see that. Those lives are ruined too. That's a much larger number, by the way. I only talked about deaths. We have 1.38 million people in the United States who are confirmed to be in a case of COVID. There are, as of December 2019's last check, there are 328 million people in the United States. To give you some comparison to the numbers that, like I said at the very beginning, are basically impossible for us to really compare, basically impossible for people to really picture in their head. And so at the end of the day, you sit there and you go, that's 0.3% of people in the United States. But, it's still a lot of people. It's an awful lot of people that are being affected. And that number is going to go up if we do not do everything in our power to prevent them from going up. And we're not doing everything in our power. We are ignoring the people who know what they're talking about. It's their job. And so, at some point, there needs to be a reconciliation of these two opposing viewpoints. Of the people who have decided that it is not important to wear a mask, it's not important to listen, it's not important to stay closed, it's not important to stay 6 feet away. These things are not important. A lot of people are saying that. What I haven't heard a lot of is medical professionals saying that. Haven't heard a lot of medical researchers saying that. Or nurses, doctors, the people who actually do this work. Heard a lot of that from economists. I've heard, admittedly, I think I've heard of one medical professional who said it, and my understanding is they were fired from a place where they were stealing things, I think, was part of it. But a lot of the stuff that they said appears to have been debunked pretty damn quick. Only person I've seen so far who actually knows what they're talking about, who, you know, said that the things that are being recommended are not important. As I said, this makes me angry. Because when I look at this, I worry about my family. I worry that the people that are in my family who regularly have to deal with sick people are going to suffer. They're going to get sick because someone else just had to go out and get a latte. I worry that things will get worse, that more people will die because people just had to show that they're not going to allow their quote-unquote constitutional rights to be infringed over this. I worry a lot, actually, that at a certain point, either things are going to get significantly worse health-wise, you know, tons and tons more people being affected by all of this. More people dying on a regular basis. Or that the powers that be, realizing that things are not getting better, are going to put in even harsher restrictions, and even worse things are going to happen. There's already people walking around with guns protesting. It's not going to take much for things to get worse. Because the problem is, if we do need to shut down even harder, if we do need to say, nope, everything closed, if we make the decision that we need to do what, you know, China did, for example, and kind of just shut down top to bottom, how do you enforce that? The word force is involved, which should give you some idea of the necessity of that. But you go into a set of armed protesters, people who are walking around with assault rifles, with pistols, you know, already something that makes some people uneasy. And you tell them you have to go home, and they say no. What are you going to do? Are you going to pull out rubber bullets and fire on them? Very unlikely that they're packing rubber bullets in those guns. Tear gas? Riot police? Force has to come up at some point if people are just flat refusing, and that's what people are doing. They're flat refusing. They're making it very clear that they are not listening at all. So we get to potential force, and then people die, not from COVID, but from literally just stupid decisions. And that's the type of thing that spreads. That's riots and things of that nature. Now, I'm talking about a very slippery slope argument. I acknowledge that. There's no guarantee that anything that I just mentioned could happen. We could have people who do decide to be smart, that if another lockdown does happen, they will look at enough of the evidence and go, you know what, you're right. You know, we were at 1.8 million people a week and a half ago, and now we're at 3 million people. God, maybe we should have stayed closed. There's every chance that's going to happen. People might be smart. I really hope so. But so far what I'm seeing is they're not doing so. And I don't want to see more people die from COVID or otherwise because of shit like this. Can I find you a surgeon fish? I'll try. How do you get surgeon fish again? That's not an easy one, right? That's one of the really hard ones to get. Oh, no, it isn't. Never mind. Okay. But yeah, that's my rant. I went on for an hour, like I thought I was going to. As I said, long story short, to TLDR, this entire thing, I'm both angry and worried that people will not let things close, that will not follow recommendations because they think they know better. And it, you know, it's just one of those things that I'm sitting there going, who has to say something for you to listen? Or are you willing to argue no matter what? So it worries me because, you know, we've already... bad things have already happened due to this virus. I don't want to see worse things happen because we took steps before we should have. You know, it's very much you need to commit to a course. We chose a course and people aren't committing. They decided they know better. And the problem is that with a lot of these people, it looks like they very much don't. But they've decided they know better. And bad things are going to happen because of it. People in positions of trust, you know, community leaders, church leaders, owners of businesses. Oop, I want you. Come here, you. That's actually a striped one. Where'd you go? Nope. Come here, you little bastard. But people's in positions of trust have made statements because they're... Bandit Dragon? Did I not already get one of them? Huh. Hold on. I could have sworn. Maybe that's just what it says when you catch this thing. Yeah, it's donated. I've already caught that. Okay. But I'm worried that we have people who, you know, there's not an agreement amongst the experts, and because they're not in agreement amongst the experts, well, actually, I take that back. It seems like the experts actually are in agreement, but there's not agreement amongst the politically powerful, or amongst the leaders, and because there's no agreement there, people are making different decisions, and bad things are going to happen. And that, you know, that concerns me. It concerns me that people are not listening to those who know what they're supposed to, who know the answers. And this is not new. This is human nature. This is something that happens all the time. People do not listen to those who really know because it does not correspond to what they would like to believe. It doesn't correspond to what they'd like to think. That's not new, ever. It's never been new. This has been going on for thousands, well, I want to say at least 1,000 years. But hundreds and hundreds of years is probably the better way to put that. People think they know better, and they'll act on what they think they know better. It doesn't matter if there's proof or otherwise. It's just people. It's people being people. It's people being stupid. But there are potentially really bad ramifications of this particular brand of stupid. I speak as a person who watched, you know, I watched Katrina. Like, it's really easy for me to reach to that, being a person who was born in New Orleans, who's lived in New Orleans. But, you know, I look at Katrina, where there was recommendations, get the hell out of town. And people went, nah, we've dealt with hurricanes before, we know what's up. And then terrible shit happened. You know, it took this city a decade to really recover and, you know, and get back to where it really should be. And people didn't listen. They didn't listen to the experts because they thought they knew better. We've seen that shit. This is worse. Okay, folks, I have ranted for an hour. I've said a lot of things that are going to upset a lot of people. There's a lot of experts out there who are going to disagree with what I said and are going to want to correct me, and I actually welcome it. I do want this to be a actual discussion topic. So, you know what? Agree or disagree, I do want to hear from you. If you actually know better than I do, if you're one of those people that I've labeled experts, the people who actually know, I really do want to hear from you. I want to hear you correct me because people should hear corrections, and I'll be happy to edit or make a new video as necessary. You know, if you actually know stuff, let me know, because I think that's kind of important, is to kind of spread the actual information. I'm trying to repeat only what I've seen from, you know, the reputable news sources and, you know, the actual experts in question. And then also, you know, anything that's my opinion qualifies my opinion. But I do want to hear from the folks that are actually in the know. You know, as I said, I also welcome people to disagree with me. Absolutely, let's talk about it. Let's have that discussion. So, do leave those comments below. I don't know if this is necessarily a video that's going to be liked, but like I say at the end of every one of these videos, hitting like makes it more likely people are going to find this. So please hit that. I'm not usually going to go on rants. I'm not usually going to rant about intensely controversial topics like today. But if you do want to hear more videos where I just talk, please subscribe. I upload videos every day. We're doing 3 videos a day right now. So there's kind of a lot of stuff going on there. And then there's always the live streams. I will be doing another stream today, doing Lobotomy Corporation, I believe, this afternoon, as long as things go well. You can find me on Twitch. And you can join to the Discord to talk to me, yell at me. Alternatively, just to see the Go Live announcement when that happens in a couple hours. That was cathartic. And that's going to be it for me, guys. I love all of you. Know that. Go hug a loved one. I would appreciate it if you did. And I will see you guys next time.